Hi, this is Kate Stillman with YogaHealer.com, and I want to tell you what's different about the Living Ayurveda course for September that starts in September 2013. It starts at the end of the month in September and it goes through the end of May 2014. Now, first off, the reason I started teaching the Living Ayurveda course, this is my 5th year right now, so next year will be the 6th annual. And I had wanted to teach this course for about 5 years before I started teaching it. I just simply didn't have the online technology 10 years ago to do it. But the reason it came up is I was working with clients one-on-one, you know, the typical, you go to see your local Ayurveda practitioner and they do pulse diagnosis and they do tongue diagnosis and they start telling you these changes that you need to make in your diet and your lifestyle in order for you to experience the next level of vibrant health or of svastha, of integrity in yourself. And what I noticed in working this way is, first of all, it's expensive, right? I mean, it costs usually $60 to $200 to see somebody every single time. And what you really need, aside from the personalization, is really the education. So I thought, well, what if we just took the education and we just built out the whole, like what yoga students, what yoga teachers really want, right, from Ayurveda, like the real practical stuff, the stuff that's like, helps you understand your constitution over time, because it takes time. The stuff that helps you then change your lifestyle in alignment with understanding your constitution and understanding the nature of the self outside of constitution, where we're all the same. And this is where Ayurveda is so incredibly brilliant, is it says, you know, you're not just this mind, this body, but there's these 5 different bodies to take care of. There's 5 different levels of hygiene that you need to do, to check into. And that in order to learn those levels of hygiene, in order to understand your physiology and understand your ecology, what's around you, how to bring your ecology into your kitchen, to bring it into your body, in order to understand all this, it simply takes time. And it takes guidance and education, and it's absolutely accelerated by community. So what I thought of doing about 6 years ago was putting together this course where people, yoga students and yoga teachers, really, from all over the world could come and go through an education. And I made it the length of basically incubation. I made it the 9-month cycle. And what we found, now that we're into the 5th year of it, is that it keeps getting better. With this past year, we've recorded amazing webinars. We do usually about every 10 days. And we have calls where we get together and we talk about what's going on. So for instance, yesterday's webinar was all on what's going on for Ayurveda for women. Like everything we know from the most basic into complexity, how women's physiologies, from a yogic standpoint, from an Ayurvedic standpoint, how they're different from a men's physiology, and how to optimize a woman's physiology, and how to teach this to girls, right? And what happened in the call is like this deep awakening within our group, and there's 100 people in the course this year. There'll probably be 200 people in the course next year. That within this group, there was so much awakening, there's so much mourning from the women who are are postmenopausal in the course, realizing that they weren't ever truly nourishing their Shakti. They weren't ever truly awake to the power of their cycles. And for the younger women in the course who are on various forms of birth control, they're awakening to, like, I've been duped. I was duped by health class in 7th grade. I never really got this inner body education of how the flows work in my body, where deep power comes from, how this works with the doshas, the different constitutions, how this works with different times of life. So this is just a little snapshot of what we get. And I create all these various charts and growth work and these visuals that are really actually quite aesthetically appealing and just draw you in to the material to make it alive for you and your body. Now, the week before, we went through the 5 senses, your 5 sense organs, and all the different sense organ therapies that the yogis have come up with over the last few thousand years, right? Because their therapies, why do the yogis develop sense organ therapies, you might ask? Well, the yogis, right, the meditators of yore, the ones who are trying to perceive consciousness as such, right? What they notice is that if your senses are at all blocked, you can't perceive clearly. It's like having, dust on the mirrors. You can't see clearly, right? And so by having the sense organs clean and clear and optimized to last 100 years, you can clearly perceive. So there's all these different sense organ therapies, none of which you grew up with, none of which you actually practice or know. So what we do in the course is we take those practices and we bring them into our life, and we answer questions, and we see, well, what's an easier way to do it that's more practical to our modern life, and how can I do this for my child, or how can I help my aging grandmother with her hearing, at 90? And this is what we do in this course. It's very practical, very intergenerational. And in the course, you do get a full year 1 education of Ayurveda. You do learn all of the terminology, you basically learn the systems of the body from a subtle body perspective. You learn your subtle body anatomy, which is actually quite different than the yogic subtle body anatomy. It's much more coming from the level of disease and disease prevention. Why that should matter to you is because you want to live long and healthy. And just knowing, genetically, what are you up against? What are the patterns? Like, how's your ship going to sink? Right? Asking yourself those real questions, charting your health history in terms of the Ayurvedic terminology, you start to get this inner map of your particular physiology. And you start to learn which actions that you can be taking on a daily basis, on a seasonal basis, on an annual basis, and on a time of life basis to really help you prevent the diseases of your ancestors and start to go into a whole nother level of health evolution to pass on to the other people in your life and potentially to your offspring. So just to give you a little bit of idea, that's a little bit of what we do in Living Ayurveda. And what's so exciting to me is that next year, for the 2013 course, we're going to have, all these webinars are created. So you're going to be able to go through them week by week, but you're also going to be able to have access to me a few times a month. I'm going to be doing Q&As at least twice a month. I'm going to be offering a discussion group once a month for us to just go deeper into small groups on the phone, where you call in and I put you in a small group with 2 or 3 other people from around the world who are in the same course, who are struggling with the same things or having similar breakthroughs, that are doing this with their yoga students or their families. And you're going to be able to connect. And what we found, it sounds totally corny and ridiculous, but those calls, people get off those calls and they're like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who's waking up to my subtle physiology. I'm not the only one who can't eat the same food as everybody else wants to eat around me. And that's just a really amazing thing to have that kind of support. And then once a month, we'll also have guest speakers. So you'll have 4 opportunities live a month, and then you'll also have the webinars to be going through in your own time, so that the time that we have live together is really super potent. All right, and that's just a little bit of an overview of the course. We also meet on the Facebook forum, which this year has been absolutely hopping, and people have been really connecting with each other and getting answers. That forum is staffed by people that have apprenticed with me for years. So while I might not answer your question directly, somebody else will, and I pop in and out of there at least twice a week too. So that's a little bit about Living Ayurveda. If you have ever desired to want to know your physiology more completely, or if you've wanted to prevent the diseases of your ancestors, I highly recommend you joining us this fall.